Liberation theology. Theological approach. Liberation theology is a movement in Christian theology, particularly in Latin America, that emphasizes social concern for the poor and political liberation for oppressed peoples. It emerged as a moral reaction to the poverty and social injustice in the region, particularly during the 1960s and 1970s. The following outlines the key theological approaches and principles of liberation theology. Historical context. Liberation theology arose in a context of widespread poverty, political repression, and social injustice in Latin America. It was influenced by various political and social movements, including Marxism, which provided a critique of capitalist structures that were seen as perpetuating inequality and oppression. Key theological approaches. Preferential option for the poor. Liberation theology advocates for a preferential option for the poor, suggesting that the needs of the poor and marginalized should be prioritized in all aspects of church and societal life. This concept is rooted in the belief that God has a special concern for the oppressed and that the gospel calls for active solidarity with those who are suffering. Contextual theology. Liberation. Theology is highly contextual, meaning that it interprets the Bible and Christian doctrine in light of the specific socio-economic and political situations of the community. The experiences of the poor and oppressed are central to theological reflection, making theology a practical and dynamic discipline rather than a purely academic one. Social and political engagement. Liberation theology emphasizes active involvement in social and political issues as a form of Christian discipleship. It challenges Christians to work for justice, peace, and human dignity, often calling for radical changes in social structures to achieve these goals. Critical reflection and praxis. A key component is the dialectical relationship between action, praxis, and reflection. Theological insights are developed through engagement with real-world struggles, and these insights, in turn, inform further action. This process ensures that theology remains grounded in lived experiences and remains relevant to the needs of the people. Biblical interpretation. Liberation. Theologians often reinterpret biblical texts from the perspective of the poor and oppressed, highlighting themes of liberation, justice, and the prophetic tradition of speaking truth to power. Stories such as the Exodus, the prophetic calls for justice, and Jesus' ministry to the marginalized are central narratives. Prominent figures. Gustavo Gutierrez. Often regarded as the father of liberation theology, his seminal work, A Theology of Liberation, laid the foundation for the movement. Oscar Romero, the Archbishop of San Salvador, who became a symbol of the struggle for social justice and was martyred for his outspoken opposition to repression. Leonardo Boff, a Brazilian theologian whose works have significantly contributed to the development of liberation theology, particularly in the context of environmental issues. Criticisms and challenges. Marxist influences. Liberation theology has been criticized for its use of Marxist analysis, leading some to accuse it of promoting a form of class struggle incompatible with Christian teachings. Church authority. The movement has faced opposition from within the Catholic Church, particularly from conservative elements who see it as a challenge to traditional authority and doctrine. Global context. While initially focused on Latin America, liberation